What to look for tomorrow in preseason game number 3, and Dennis Fithian is our guest.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Matt Dery with you. It's a Friday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Friday, August 23rd, and it's Saturday, August 24th. Preseason game number 3 tomorrow against the Steelers. What's most important is that tomorrow's preseason game is the last preseason game. Then we get real games. We get cut down day on Tuesday, and then in a couple of weeks, Lions and Rams, Matt Stafford, Kelly Stafford, Sean McVay, all coming to town. But hey, Cam Sutton is back tomorrow. I just thought about that today. He's not going to play. I wouldn't think. He's one of the Steelers' best cornerbacks. He's actually suspended for the first 8 games, but the former Lion might be in the building at Ford Field tomorrow. But thanks for making us your first listen. Check us out wherever you get your podcast. Thanks to our everydayers who are out there that watch and listen to the show daily. Appreciate you all very, very much. Locked On Lions today, brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. How about that? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. You can follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions, Matt Dery Facebook fan page. And thank you to those of you that subscribe and watch each and every day on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Dennis Fithian, my main man who I worked with for years at 97.1 The Ticket, longtime Detroit sports radio host, now at Michigan Rivals, fills in on the X's and Bros statewide show. Dennis is going to join us, talk some Lions in a little bit here. Biggest thing for me for tomorrow, and I am scheduled to be there tomorrow down at Ford Field to watch the Lions and Steelers in person. Don't ask me why, but I'm going. Is some battles, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, what guys step up, who has a decent day tomorrow. Will Hendon Hooker start? Is Nate Sudfeld going to look anything like a veteran backup quarterback? Because the first 2 games haven't been great. A little bit better last week, but you know what I mean. But the biggest thing that I'm going to make a prediction right here on this show, and I could be very wrong. This could be a prediction that does not come to fruition. Hang on, I'm looking at something here. Yeah, this could be something that does not happen. It's very possible, but I'm going to go for it. Tomorrow, I want to see if James Houston plays. And if not, because he's been bothered by a little bit of a sore knee, could this be the end for James Houston? Because if a guy like Mitchell Agude plays well, Isaac Uku plays well, James Houston might be cut. The Lions tried James Houston at the Sam linebacker spot and then just stopped doing that. The Lions last year, yes, James Houston got hurt, but before he got hurt last year, he had underachieved from what we saw 2 years ago, when, of course, he had 8.5 sacks and just burst on the scene. But you wonder with the injuries and not being able to fit and just being a basic third down pass rusher, if the Lions actually cut bait from James Houston. Or does he play through a knee injury, show up tomorrow, look good, play well against a shaky right tackle that the Steelers have, and make the squad? That's something to keep an eye on. There are going to be a couple of names next Tuesday that make this roster, especially on defense, that not a lot of Lions fans are going to recognize. So, we'll have to see where this all goes and how it kind of plays out for tomorrow. As far as offensively, Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be someone to watch tomorrow. Certainly Isaiah Williams. Can he play on the outside? I think he's had a good enough preseason to make the team. The problem is he's 5'10", and he's the same build and look as Amon-Ra St. Brown and Khalif Raymond. So, the 4th tight end spots, little things like that, and certainly going to be interesting. But what I like is that the defense is going to be facing Russell Wilson and likely Justin Fields. But again, we're going to be watching to see what Hendon Hooker does and Nate Sudfeld. And look, football back at Ford Field, even if it's fake, even if it's a preseason game, for the diehard fans to go down there tomorrow and check the team out and just, see all the posters outside the stadium and see all the signage and get a feel for it is going to be fun. So, hit me back in the third or fourth quarter on Twitter and ask me how it's going. Cause I'll tell you, I can't wait for it to be over, but those are a couple of things just to kind of keep an eye on. Certainly, the expectations are so high and the roster is so good that there's not a lot of competition. There's not a lot of jobs that are open. I think it was Justin Rogers, Dave Burkett, Kyle. I was reading a couple of those guys the other day and they were talking about it. I mean, Dan Campbell has said there's really only about 6 or 7 spots that are kind of wide open and up for grabs here on this roster. That means what Brad Holmes has built and what this roster configuration is right now is a plus and a positive. The other thing too is Dan Campbell, I'm assuming, will be asked by Dan Miller on the pregame radio show and also probably in the postgame at the press conference about Penei Sewell's health and the hope, of course, that he's okay and, is going to be just fine and ready to rock for the opener September 8th against the Rams. But I'm making that prediction about James Houston. I think he could be a casualty and I think he could be let go. Depending on how Agude plays and depending on what how the Lions feel about some of their other, edge rushers and some of these guys. But James Houston's roster spot, I think, is in jeopardy. So we'll see how that goes. All right, Dennis Fithian going to join us coming up next. We will talk to Dennis about the Lions and get his thoughts next right here on a Friday Locked On Lions. And this edition of Locked On Lions is brought to you by BetterHelp. All right, when your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it, right? When we feel like we have no time for ourselves, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you're thinking about starting up therapy, do me a favor. Give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, as promised, joining me right now here on Locked On Lions, a Friday edition before the Lions take on the Steelers. Tomorrow, a Saturday edition of the preseason. It's our good buddy Dennis Fithian, Michigan Rivals, X's and Bros. Always love talking sports with Dennis, my former compadre at 97.1 The Ticket. Denny, great to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. I can remember back in the day being at Ford Field when the Lions played the Steelers a few times in the regular season. There would be so many of those towels twirling around in there, but it's different now. If the Steelers were coming in, they're not. But it'd be now we see it with the shoe on the other foot. You see all that Honolulu blue in the stadium, and that's just like one of the many things that's pretty awesome.
It's crazy. I told a story the other day. Were you at the Super Bowl when the Steelers played the Seahawks? Were you there?
No, I was with the women's basketball team in Minnesota. Tough scheduling that day.
I just remember walking into the stadium. I was covering it for DFN and like the terrible towels 2-3 hours before the game. I'm like, this is a Seahawks road game. It's crazy. And there will be Steeler fans there tomorrow, but it's just like you said, now the Lions have just taken over this town. All the shows that we used to do together at the Ticket and everything else. Can you believe where we are, Dennis, in 2024 with this football team? Cover of SI, Super Bowl pick. I mean, this is nuts.
Well, it reminds me, I liked working in Detroit, but there was one show that I dreaded every year, and it was Super Bowl Sunday. I did for at least 10 years, a 4-hour call-in show before the Super Bowl coverage, and nobody would call. And you could only, how many times could you play, what would it be like if the Lions were on the edge of being actually in the Super Bowl? And nobody wanted to play along with that because nobody ever thought that they were going to be there. So it was really tough, and it was one of those days where it was just a reality where people that were listening were like, yeah, we're going to watch the Super Bowl, but we really don't want to hear anything about the Lions. There's just there was nothing that you could connect them with. And so I would just sit there for 4 hours, and, you can only say, you like your hot wings, boneless or bone in. I mean, it only goes so far, so it's different. This off season has been fabulous. Just for me, I run into my friends, and as soon as they see me, all huge Lion fans, and it's like I can imagine what it would be like now if they went to the Super Bowl. But just last week, my friends were like, I said, and I'm not sure about the whole DC thing, and they were like, I might as well have like slapped one of their kids across their face. You're like, it's Motor City Dan Campbell. What don't you like about it? I'm like, I guess I didn't know it stood for Motor City Dan Campbell, but they're like, Dan Campbell is such a superstar in Lion fans' eyes. And, there's good reason for that. Just like Brad Holmes. It's like they have this thing. It's not only where they're in a good position, they've set it up the right way and everything looks good for the future. They've dodged a few bullets here in the preseason, but, everything's looking good for 16 days? Is that what we are away?
It's crazy to think it is coming right up here, September 8th against the Rams. Dennis Fithian with us, Michigan rivals, fills in on X's and Bros, longtime Detroit sports radio host. And how many years you did post games for the Lions on the ticket for how many years? A bunch, right?
12 years. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Imagine that.
I used to say, Deez, it was like, doing 1 year of Lions post games is like 7 years. They're like dog years.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like 70 years that I did that. The old 16 team. That was a tough one.
Did you do the show that year?
I did the post games there. I was at a restaurant, and I guaranteed that they wouldn't lose to the Packers. It was like week 15 or 16.
Yeah.
It's one of those stupid bits that you say. But then the Lions I think they were in the lead in the third quarter, and I went up to the guy and I said, look, we've got people calling here. He said that, that you're offering free beer, free drinks.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, oh man, what's going to happen? I said, I'll leave you my card, but it's not going to take you that far. But they folded up in the fourth quarter. He was still alive.
Realistically, let's talk about the Super Bowl for a second. Do you see it? Do you put a percentage chance on it? Do you say, yeah, I think they're going to get there? Like you said, your friends come up to you. What do you say to them when they drop those two words on you?
I feel like if they get the number one seed, they have home field advantage. They're at Ford Field for the NFC Championship game. Then I think it's better than 50%. I think they'll beat the 49ers if they're at Ford Field. What a great scene that would be. But, you don't get the one seed. You're talking about winning on the road. We know how close they were. But, that drops it below 50%. So if they're the goal is the Super Bowl. We know that. But the things that are achievable, making sure that you get those home playoff games, winning the Central, and then if you can get that one seed, man, I'll feel pretty good about it then. That's really, I think those two things are the ones. So you can talk about 11, 12 wins or whatever you want, but you win the Central, you win the North, you're in there, you're in the driver's seat, you're looking pretty good.
What worries you? Let's start with that in terms of this season, looking at the roster, or are there no worries? I mean, I always talk about the schedule, that it's difficult, and there's no cupcakes on this schedule, maybe a couple, but not like last year where all right, the Raiders are coming in with McDaniels. That's a joke. Carolina, please. This schedule's loaded.
It's loaded, but I like that they have a lot of games indoors that, fits golf. The defense a little bit until we see what they're going to look like out at corner. Are they really going to have that pass rush? You got to do better than they did last year defensively. It feels like, even though they were that close, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, that would be the biggest thing to me. But they went out there, all the things that they did in free agency and in the draft, I like. But yeah, that's the worry. Talking with the fans a lot this summer, the fans are worried about Dan Campbell being in a tight spot and the propensity of gambling too much. And I get that. Gamblers like to gamble. I mean, that's one thing by nature that they like to do. Can he navigate that? I feel pretty good about him being able to pull back in a big game, in a big spot, and not have to roll the dice. The other one, and it's not a worry for me, but it's one that a lot of people bring up, is that there have been a lot of teams that have been able to get to the NFC Championship game and have been those one-hit wonders. But like I said before, this team, it's not built on a house of, sand here. It's not a deck of cards like that. This thing, they're sound on the lines, and, they've got star players. And I like this off season. You look at the Cowboys every day, the Bengals, and, there's 49ers. There's harmony. That means, I don't know if it means a lot, but it means something. If we were sitting here talking about, playing hardball with St. Brown, or, let's hardball with Jared Goff, and let's think about franchise tagging him. That that could be something. But man, it's looking pretty good. They dodged those bullets with these injuries, it looks like. I don't know. I'll ask you. You think Sewell's going to suit up for the opener?
I do. Yeah, I think he'll be all right. You bring up a great point. When you were doing the shows and we were working together, it was like they just never could get it right. And you're right. Now you see the Ayuk situation in San Francisco still not resolved. Jordan Love, I thought the Packers rushed that contract, but regardless, the CD Lamb situation in Dallas, none of that occurs here anymore. Like you said, I mean, the one guy we're still waiting on is Aleem McNeil, but I think they'll get that done. And that's what good organizations do. And that's what the Lions used to not do. It's wild to think about, isn't it?
Well, and you just go over the top on that and you think about being able to keep Ben Johnson. They still have him. I know fans hear it all the time, but that's a big deal. Almost every other coach in that situation, and he's done it 2 years in a row. So that's why, even though I would say there's a strong 3-year window, I don't know how far you want to go beyond that, but this year, this is the one with Johnson. This feels like it's going to be their best team without being able to look far beyond just thinking about offensive coordinator, where they're at with their young players, how they're all ascending, the trajectory, all of that. That's why I do think this year, and that's why they should be thinking about, they're not sitting around talking about, let's just get into the playoffs, would a home game be nice? They're talking about, having home field advantage throughout and getting the NFC Championship game at Ford Field. And if it could match the atmosphere of the first game last year, I don't know, that'd be hard to do, but I think it would. That would be the only thing. I can't see anything else doing it.
No question about it. Dennis Fithian with us. We're going to take a break, come back. I'm going to ask Dennis about some players to watch and certainly guys that he's excited to see this year, and also who could be a contender in the NFC besides Detroit and San Francisco. I want to ask Dennis about that. We'll do a little Michigan as well here on a Friday at Locked On Lions. Today's show brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Before we hit record, Dennis and I were talking about LinkedIn and just posting and being on there actively with your business. That is why you got to post your job at LinkedIn. It's not just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. It's because it's the best. So you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Here's what you do. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. You want to know something about Michigan football? Dennis Fithian is the man. Michigan Rivals, read him there. Listen to the podcast there. Also fills him from time to time on the statewide X's and Bros show. Longtime sports radio host here in Detroit. Worked with me for 4 years at the Ticket as well. All right, Dennis, what new players, some new faces excite you? Who are you looking to, who you think maybe takes next steps with guys that are currently there? What excites you about this roster heading into 2024?
Well, just for these preseason games, I don't think I'm not expecting much from Vikai, but I was pretty excited to watch him. I don't, as much as he looked good last game. I think that if I'm Craig Reynolds, I know he's done a lot of nice things for the Lions. He comes up a team guy, can do a lot of things, but nobody can be more versatile, I think, than Vikai, and he showed what he could do in the run game. So I'm excited about him. I don't know about third wide receiver, but Isaiah Williams, watched him a lot in the Big Ten, and what else do you want him to do? He catches the ball, and he's not just out there, running. They're putting it right on him. He's catching it away from his body. He looks like he's not the biggest guy, but he's got a nice catch radius, and you could do worse. I'm thinking that now with the Lions, because they are, I was going to say a preeminent team, they're at least one of the favorites. Maybe we want to call them a preeminent team, that there's going to be some guys that, they're bigger names that aren't just necessarily looking for the biggest check, that want to come in and try to win a Super Bowl. And that could be with that third wide receiver. But those are the two guys I think that I've looked at in the preseason. And then the guy overall that they need to really just, make this offense and take it to the next level is J-Mo. If he can come out and be that deep threat, they've got everything else that you're looking for. He's capable. Everything that he's done this offseason, everything that Campbell said about him, He doesn't have to score 10 touchdowns, but if he can pop that top off the defense once in a while, that's going to be huge. Now, if I could tell you on the defensive side, I like both of the corners, but, the guys that I've seen there, I don't know. They might get cut. Houston and Pascal, I was thinking, or Davenport, the free agent. He's got to stay healthy, but
yeah,
what I've seen, not here in the preseason, I've seen like a question mark for those guys playing late in the second half, but they need something else on that pass rush. That's what I was looking at.
It's interesting because before you came on in the first segment, I brought that up about James Houston, that tomorrow, if he plays and he's had a little bit of a sore knee, there's a chance this is his last game as a Lion. I don't think he's a lock to make the roster. Mitchell Agude might make it over him. You mentioned Pascal before, and I think that would turn some heads. Not that this roster is so loaded, there's only 5 or 6 spots that really are up for grabs. But James Houston is a guy that, 2 years ago, we're like, oh my gosh, what a find. But I think his spot's in peril. Dennis, what do you think so?
I think so. And the telltale sign without being there at practice is you're in there in the fourth quarter, unless somebody goes down and he just happened to be there and they're like, send him in. It's usually a pretty strong indication that you're on the bubble. So, or they're trying to motivate you. So that's at least some intrigue going into tomorrow's game to take a look at. If Reeder on that defense, I don't know where he's at health-wise. I know he hasn't been playing. If he's going to, I'd like to see him in 2 weeks there in the middle. That would be something that, watching the NFL, knowing the Bengals, knowing what kind of player he is, he's going to be huge, but he needs to be there for the opener. And if they start talking about, he's going to work through some things, or obviously the pup, you don't want to hear anything about that. That'd be something that would be pretty big for that defense as well.
Yeah, if he misses the first 4 with pup, that's tough. All right, yeah. Detroit and San Francisco played obviously for the NFC title last year. Give me a team in the NFC that maybe scares you that are not named the Lions and Niners.
Yeah, well, I think it's the team that they're playing right out of the gate. I think old Matt Stafford, bringing it in there, Cup's back. We saw Puka. I don't know the defense, but they got a really good coach, and the Lions only did beat them by 1. So it's not like you just dismiss the Rams. I know they lost Donald, but that would be one. I also think that Jalen Hurts, a lot had to do with his knee last year and why they took the big step back. And AJ Brown's on my fantasy team. I wonder about him just being, I don't know, you say a team guy. I know wide receivers are divas by nature, but it was early in the season and Devontae Smith was having a great game and Brown was over there like throwing a fit. I was like, what are you doing over there? He's having a great game. And it just seemed like there was some disconnect there, but they got Saquon Barkley. That's a hell of a team. I wouldn't want to play the Eagles on the road. We'd have to reset some Lomas Brown guarantees and everything else. But, I do think that the Eagles and Rams could be there. I'm not so high on the Bucs. I think the Cowboys are going to be a terrible team this year. I don't see much firepower there, and I think the Falcons will get into the postseason, but I don't think they're a threat. I think it is Detroit and San Francisco, and then LA and Philly. I think those are the top 4.
What about Green Bay?
Yeah, what about them? Yeah, I don't think Green Bay. I like Love, but I'm not ready with the receivers that they have. I'm not a big fan of Jacobs, and so I don't think Green Bay is going to be as good as I know his famous last words. And
I know,
but I just don't think they're going to be as good. I know they beat the Cowboys, and Love's got some real nice numbers in the second half of the season, but I'm not convinced. I put him 5 on that list.
So we got week 0 in college football. That's your bread and butter. You love it. And then week 1, Michigan is back. Who's starting at quarterback, Dennis? Give us a scoop.
Well, I'm hoping that on Monday that Sharon Moore, when he meets all of the media, that he says Alex Orji is going to be our quarterback. If he doesn't do that, I've got about 5 or 6 follow-up questions for him there that I'm going to be firing at him. Like, Coach, are you philosophically against playing multiple quarterbacks in a game? Because history has shown that that's not a good recipe for any team. And I want to ask him about continuity during a game, momentum during a game. If he's your guy, there's no reason to be coy. You've gone this far. You didn't have to say anything up there. They're going to practice during the week. It's going to get out anyways. Get behind your guy. Name your starter. That's what I want to see on Monday. I think it's going to be Alex Orji. I'm just waiting to see. You know how it is at Michigan. They like to play some games.
Really? They do?
Even if they could kick the can for 24 more hours.
Oh my God.
It's good for a place like Rivals. It's a cottage industry. They're not going to say anything, and then they're going to practice, and then somebody's going to tell their girlfriend or their mom or dad, and then they're going to call us, and then we're going to be like, hey, it's orgy, and then there'll be no suspense or anything. Although Sharon and company might think that Fresno State has to prepare a little extra.
Yeah, here we go.
For the backups. They had a 7th-year guy. I know because you're an Indiana basketball and football guy in Jack Tuttle, but he's hurt. So now they're like, well, Davis Warren, I don't know how many quarterbacks they think want us to think they all have, but I think it's orgy. And, if a great defense can take you a long way, I think Michigan has a great defense. Certainly have great players, and they got a lot of guys over there. You can make a case they might be the best in the country. They'll certainly be one of them. So if they can develop with orgy and a running game, I think they can make the college football playoff. That's where I'm at right now with them.
Everybody's picking Ohio State and Oregon to play in that Big Ten or whatever they're calling the league, a championship game now. But Michigan's gonna have something to say about it, Dennis, and I'm sure you're gonna have a ton to talk about this fall. Thanks for coming on, brother. Great to see you.
It's always great to see you. First listen, I'm usually the first one in there, man. I gotta tell you.
Oh my God, I love it, Dennis. Wait till David Locke, the man that runs our network, our founder, hears that one. That'll be awesome. Thanks, brother.
See you later.
Dennis Fithian with us here on a Friday Locked On Lions. I will be down at Ford Field tomorrow. We'll have more from Lions and Steelers on Monday.